Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you all for joining us today. My name is Gisa Sateri with SAIC, and I serve as the Acquisition COI Industry Chair. I'll do a quick round of intros of our COI team. We have Mike Scorney, who is our government chair. On the call, we have Scott Simpson. You may know him. He was in at DHS and GSA for a while, for a good bit of time, and then he just recently joined industry, so he's taken on an industry vice chair role along with Ben Margolin from MetroStar, also as our industry vice chair. And then we have Nicole Nunn, who is our program chair. And then recently we had Andrea Zarkon-Heller from GSA join us as our communications chair. So she's going to be keeping us in check on communicating all of our meetings, events, projects, and so forth to the member group. So look out for postings and so forth from Andrea on LinkedIn. This session is in collaboration with the GSA Federal Insight Exchange team, the FIE team, which I'm proudly a member of as well, along with my colleague and collaborator for this session, Dominic Sale, who's with Code and Theory. The FIE serves as a platform that brings industry and government executives together for focused discussions related to priorities, challenges, and successes critical to their agencies. And the Acquisition COI, as you know, we've been busy this year bringing you lots of programs and sessions on all the changes that have taken place in the federal procurement landscape. And we've tried to partner up with different FIEs or different COIs, just because so much of what we do within the Acquisition COI crosses with other agencies and other topics in the COIs. If you're interested in volunteering in any of the FIE programs, there's 15 different programs. Just make sure you reach out to April Davis and give her a heads up. Check those different FIEs out on the ACT-IAC website. We have a packed agenda for today. Our guest speaker today is Larry Allen. I cannot imagine that there's anybody on this call that doesn't already know Larry, either from his current role as the GSA Associate Administrator for the Office of Government-Wide Policy, or prior roles as the President of Coalition for Government Procurement. So with that, we're going to get started. We have a list of questions for Larry, but if you have questions, if our audience has any questions, please don't hesitate to put them in the chat. Nicole's going to kind of monitor the chat and then try to kind of ask those either in between the times that we're going to go back and forth on our questions or at the end of the session. So with that, if that's okay with you, Larry, we'll go ahead and get started. And thank you again, Larry, for joining us today. We know you have a super busy schedule. I'm sure your day-to-day priorities plus all your speaking engagements. First question, Larry, if you don't mind giving us a brief overview. I think over the past year with you and your role and your leadership over OGP, I know that there was a lot of folks out there that probably didn't know about OGP, but have learned a lot about OGP over the past year. I know you're typically talking, obviously, about the Office of Acquisition, but our team was also interested to know if there were any current priorities overall for OGP, but it may be related to some of the other offices that you have within OGP, like IT policy, real property, shared solution and performance improvement, evidence and evaluation. So there's all those other offices as well. So if you don't mind just giving us an overview of your current priorities for OGP to include any and all those offices.
Sure. And I appreciate the opportunity to be here with you today. Always enjoy speaking with ACT-IAC. It's an excellent organization with which we can interface. So one of the things, there are a couple of things, as you alluded to, we've got many things under the Office of Government-Wide Policy. Aside from our acquisition office, which is the one that's most arguably more visible here, we are working on federal property management rules. So we have all the federal rules that enable us to interact with our public building service. We have the Office of Technology Policy that, excuse me, not only sets federal technology policy, but also tests some cutting edge technologies that may make their way into the federal hemisphere. we run that part of our organization runs several different labs around Washington to test those new and emerging technologies, which is kind of exciting. We also manage all of federal advisory councils, both the what I call the Sunshine Act councils, as well as things like the federal CFO and CIO councils. So we do a lot of things in the Office of Government-Wide Policy. 2025 was a year where we issued a whole bunch of new rules and did a whole bunch of revisions, not just in acquisition, but across technology and travel and property management policy, with the idea of streamlining all of those. So 2026 is going to be the year where we implement a lot of those. Not all of those have been published in the Federal Register. Some that have been published have just recently achieved that status. So this is going to be the year for implementation. On the acquisition policy side, we're going to see formal rulemaking kick off, with the first rules expected to come out for comment in April. But even before that, as many of you all probably know, the Office of Federal Procurement Policy has embarked on a consistent and wide-reaching program to get industry input, even in advance of the rulemaking. So this is going to be the year where we follow on to the things we started last year, with the idea towards getting final implementation, education, and adoption.
I love that. Perfect. Thank you. How about OGP priorities as they align? You just had the new administrator force start last week. So how about OGP's priorities aligning with some of the things that he's laid out as his priorities for the coming years?
So sure. So I think there are going to be several, a couple that are external facing and a couple that are internal to GSA, but are nevertheless noteworthy. I think it's always a good idea, for example, to understand what your federal customers are up to and what their culture is like. So let me start by saying I'm thrilled to have Ed Forst in as our administrator. He has a ton of energy, brings with him a substantial amount of private sector, senior level private sector experience. Some of you who all have heard me say before, I will say it again. If you happen to run into Ed and wish him good morning, I would strongly advise you to have a metric to back that up, because he was going to ask you on what you are basing the allegation that it is in fact a good morning. And so that's one of the key things that he is going to instill in GSA, which is this whole measurement. What are we measuring? How are we measuring it? Not just the things going that we've done before. That's not going to be it at all. It's going to be looking at what we're doing, deciding on the things that we're the best in class at, and then setting up appropriate measurement parameters for each of those action areas. That's a little bit challenging if you run a policy office, where how those things are implemented and adopted aren't always up to you. But nevertheless, my office is right along there with all the other business units inside the agency, where we are going to be expected to measure and show what we're measuring, and then justify why we are measuring the things that we are doing. So that's one part of it. Another part is, Ed has two big initiatives that we are going to work directly on that are external facing. One is with our public building service. I don't know how many of you all had the opportunity to see his confirmation hearing, but during it, one of the senators on the panel said, Mr. Forst, I just have one sentence for you: sell, baby, sell. So real estate and how we make the best use of the real estate portfolio we have, and if there's surplus real estate, how we dispose of that is definitely going to be an issue. And as I mentioned earlier, since our office has all of the federal property management policy, from a strategic standpoint, we're going to be partnering very closely on that priority with the Public Building Service. One of the other external facing is, of course, acquisition. And you all saw a lot of things about acquisition consolidation over the past 12 months, things that GSA is absolutely at the centerpiece on. We want to make sure that we are doing the things that we do well. We want to make sure that we're adding value, and that if we're not adding value, then evaluate whether or not we can change that to add value, or whether it's something that we need to do moving forward. The idea is to become a best-in-class provider to our customer agencies. And a key part of that, of course, is going to be stakeholder engagement. So we've got a lot of things going on those two fronts. Those are absolutely, both of those, in Ed's top 5 priorities. One of the other things they're actually 2, but I'll combine them for this purpose, is culture and ethics. And Ed's really a strong believer in recognizing our workforce, making sure we train our workforce properly, whether it's the acquisition workforce, the technology workforce, or whatever the component is inside the agency. We're going to do that. And so, that's encouraging our people to excel, with the core belief that we have some very smart people in our agency. We need to empower them to make good business decisions. So that whole cultural aspect of GSA, and making sure that we're communicating on a consistent and open basis among ourselves, is key. And then specifically called out is ethics and accountability. And that starts at the senior level, but it really goes all the way through the organization. So making sure that we are consistently adhering to ethical and open standards, making sure that we're building trust, regardless of who we happen to be meeting with at a given time. Don't promise more than we can deliver, but also make sure that we are performing in a way that's consistent with all the applicable rules and guidelines.
Wow, that's an excellent overview. Thank you very much. That's lots that's going to be happening at GSA over the next few months. What do you foresee as the biggest challenges and opportunities for GSA in the next 12 to 18 months?
Well, probably one of the biggest challenges is that all agencies, including our own, lost a lot of key talented people over the past 12 months. Some were furloughed or RIFed. Others took the deferred resignation program. And we're going to have to rebuild some of those skill sets. Look, taking acquisition is just one example of that. We're going to have to bring in people to our acquisition workforce to replace some of the acquisition workforce professionals that we lost to the DRP and other processes. And that's going to take some time, and that's a challenge. But the larger challenge that cuts across all of our organizations is rebuilding the relationships, rebuilding the relationships with our customer agencies, who themselves had RIFs and DRPs and other organizational changes, as well as with our industry stakeholders. And that's going to take time. That's going to take a longer time. While it definitely takes some time to bring in an accountant or an attorney or a contract specialist and have them trained up to the way that we do things in GSA, it takes even longer for those people to reach out to their colleagues in other agencies, their partners in industry, rebuild the relationships and rebuild the trust. So that's a tremendous challenge. On the opportunities side, I think, we have some solid leadership right now. And, the first time in a little while where we've had a permanent administrator, and Ed means business. He's a great guy to work with. They had to find a place to plug him in before he was confirmed. So he technically worked for me, sort of, for a few weeks, but, steadfast, very interested in people, but also very interested in performance. And I think with that type of leadership that we have inside the agency, we can go a long way in leveraging the opportunities that have been brought to us. We have the opportunity to prove to customer agencies that we are worth them giving their business to, whether it's on acquisition or real estate or fleet management or anything else. We want to make sure that we're not just providing the contracts, we're providing the services to those agencies. We don't want to take it on all at once for a lot of reasons, but what we do want to do is execute well on the things we can take on right now, and over time, build up that capability and the trust to go along with it.
Excellent. Thank you. Switching over to the FAR overhaul, obviously there's been a lot of talk about the FAR overhaul, and you kind of just gave us a little bit of an update as well. What do you expect? What are the expected benefits for the federal agencies and vendors from the FAR overhaul? What do you see as those expected benefits? And any updates on bringing the GSA supplements in line with the RFO?
Sure. So I'll take the last one first. We are actively working on updating our general services acquisition regulations. I have a person in my office whose full-time job that is, and he has a team of people. So I think in the short term, you're probably going to see more things happening on the GSAR level than on the FAR level in terms of what happens next. As I said, we are moving through the process of getting the FAR rules out and ready for public comment, but it takes a while. In the interim, we can control more of our own GSAR things inside the agency, so you'll see more happening on that in very short order. In terms of the other things, what do we expect to see? I'm going to answer that in a slightly different way from what people might expect. What I want to see from this is I want to see the buy-in and the culture shift that we hope will come among the professionals in our acquisition workforce. We have changed the rules. We will continue to change them as we go through the next phase, but we have something like 3 dozen or more than that deviations that we've put in that agencies are supposed to be using right now. And some agencies like ours have embraced all of those deviations. Other agencies are somewhere along the continuum of embracing them. So in order for us to get the desired output of the rules that we've changed is making sure the acquisition workforce has both the knowledge of those changes and the context that they need in order to implement those in their day-to-day jobs. If we can do that, if we're even somewhat successful in doing that, we will have a significant positive impact on streamlining federal acquisition. You've seen outside of GSA, you've seen that really manifest itself lately in DoD, where they're doing a lot of DFAR changes and doing a lot of things on the DoD acquisition workforce side to encourage their acquisition workforce to make better use of the flexibilities they have so that we don't have long procurement lead times, so that we actually are getting things in the pipeline and getting them out in the field in a more timely manner. And that's what this is really all about. There are other things that certainly feed into this, like and enhanced opportunities for new market entrants. And I think all of those are valid. But what I really want to see us do is empower, use a carrot, stick, whatever type of approach we need to empower our acquisition workforce to actually make use of the things we're doing.
Awesome. Thank you very much for that. I'm going to switch over to Dominic and his questions, but before we do that, Nicole, was there any audience questions in the chat that we needed to get to, or can we
Yeah,
wait after? Go ahead.
we can get to one real quick before we switch over. So one of the question was looking at how we are looking to rebuild the acquisition workforce, given everything that we've seen the past year or two. And wanted to know is what are your thoughts on how we could rapidly rebuild the workforce when it comes to different contracting certifications and just trainings and experience that we see in our leadership?
So there are a couple of things that we're doing. The fastest way that we're trying to do this is bring acquisition professionals in from other agencies for which we are going to do more of the throughput of acquisition management, not just provide the contracts, but actual wider array of assisted acquisition services than we provided before. Many of you all know we have our OCAS group in our Federal Acquisition Service. Part of their job is to provide assisted acquisition management on smaller projects, and our traditional assisted acquisition service is known to provide. In order to do that, we want to bring over the acquisition workforce from some of those agencies. Some of the agencies went ahead and riffed their acquisition workforce before we got around to that. That's going to make bringing those people in challenging because of their status. But we're also going to repurpose some of the people from inside our agency, whether they are in, I think the most prominent part of that is our public building service, where we're actively taking people from the PBS side and moving them into FAS and giving them the training they need in order to do things that are not commercial real estate. So, and that takes some time too. And ultimately, we also have a degree of hiring authority. As you all know, I run OGP. I do not run FAS. And even though I talk to my FAS colleagues on a daily basis, they will tell you more about what their plan is for attracting outside people. But I do know that they have hiring authority to do that. And they are actively going to use that authority to bring people in where needed.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Dominic, over to you.
Yeah, hey Larry. Thanks for doing this again. Thanks for your visibility and your engagement for the community. I know it's really important to us all, especially after this past year. So I feel like all we've talked about thus far is a lead into this question, which is really, we're talking about policy, all the things we've done from a policy perspective, the FAR, and we've talked about measurement, talking about Ed and, his metrics about how the morning is going. So I know policy is about affecting behavior. It's not just a writing exercise. What are the 3 to 5 significant changes you want to see in acquisition practices in the coming year, based on all the work you've done? And this can be at the federal, government-wide, or GSA, or both. I know you have purview in both areas. And how are you going to measure? Have you set up measurements for success for those practices? So talk a little bit about that.
Sure. So I think all of the goals that we have for this area are, we can start making progress on them this year. We're not going to achieve progress, all of them this year, for a lot of reasons. It can take a while to shift the gears and get back going, but we're going to start on that. So the first thing I would say is I would like to make sure our acquisition workforce knows that their senior leadership has their backs whenever they go out and make a business decision, that while it could be using the flexibilities that they have but have not previously used, or maybe they are looking at some of the things we've done in the FAR already and deciding to make full use of them, even though that's different from how they've always done it. I want to make sure that our acquisition workforce knows that when they use the things that the tools they've been given even if they're not the same tools that they've used before, that their senior management team has their backs. I think there's, industry is concerned about the IG, but I can tell you it's an actual real concern inside government as well. And I think we want to make sure that our acquisition people know that there is flexibility, and it's not just there as a bear trap, that we actually do want and expect people to use that. So, and a key part of that is making sure that they know that they're not going to get hung out to dry if they try something, even if they try it in good faith and it doesn't work out exactly how they had planned. They shouldn't automatically get dinged for that. So I think that's a very important thing. I'd like to see us move more quickly, and Ed Forrest has said this as well. So Ed and I are in agreement on this. In terms of acquisition consolidation, we have an executive order that we are been told we need to meet, and I expect us to be able to meet it. And that's going to mean, everybody's got rice bowls in the federal government. But, as much as I've seen things stay the same in acquisition over the course of my career, that's at least how many times I've seen things change. And you don't get to tomorrow just by continuing what you did yesterday. So we need to understand and realize what that means. And the idea would be that, we start lowering our acquisition overhead. We start providing more consolidated efficiencies from a contract management standpoint. And I know I don't want to be the one who gets called over to the White House to ask why this took 2.5 years. And I don't think anybody else in my agency wants to either. So we need to move quickly on those directives. The third, I'd like to see, and this is something I've really been encouraging, and I think Ed also encourages this. I want to make sure that we're out talking to people in industry. I want to make sure that we're out talking to stakeholders. A large part of GSA, a large part of the federal government took the lion's share of FY25 off from doing that. And there were some reasons for that. But I think fundamentally, we work better when we're communicating. Whether I'm in GSA or whether it was in my industry career, if you think you know what the other people are looking for, the chances are you don't. Or if you think you know what the other team can provide, you probably are missing something. So a third objective I have is to make sure that we're out talking and communicating and listening. And, I'll put in my pitch here, even though you didn't ask for it, I'll give it anyway. Look, when I was a consultant, ran my consulting business, and now that I'm in government, I know you all have sales pitches. I know you're eager to tell everybody about the great new products and services that you've got, and that's awesome. We want to hear about them. But what we really want is for people to listen. What's the two ears, one mouth, old saw that people have said. Listen first. That's going to help you tailor whatever message that you have. And it's going to provide some embedded use cases into how we can make good use of the new gizmos and services that you're providing. So I've always talked to my clients, when I had clients that said, listen first, talk later. They paid for that advice. Half of them did not listen to it. So I am giving you this advice free now that I am in government, and I would urge you to actually adhere to it. So, but that's communication. I think that as we move through, we're going to have, as we move through this year, nothing stays the same. So we're going to end up having a landscape that continues to change. Change is not going to stop. and it may accelerate in some areas, but we also want to do things in a purposeful manner, not just change for change's sake. Therefore, how's that?
That's great. I appreciate that, and definitely all ears right now. So talked a lot about, practices, things you'd like to see improve. We've also talked about a lot of the workforce challenges, which is kind of where technology might come in. I don't think I've heard you say AI yet. Maybe you did and I missed it. But we've gone this far without mentioning AI or other technology specifically on how to improve the work at GSA and government-wide. What do you see as one or two what do you see as the most promising technologies to help improve speed, communication, and maybe what are some things you see that are more promising than we might think, and what do you think is still snake oil at this point? And you don't have to answer that, but if you want to put your own flavor
Sure.
on it at
Yeah,
the
I'm
end.
not sure about snake oil, but I think that uh, from the top of our agency all the way down, we do want to make wider use of AI. Some people in our agency are justifiably proud that in certain areas, GSA has already been kind of an early adopter of AI technology, whether it's in our IT systems, whether it's in some of the things that we've been doing on the revolutionary fire overhaul, or how we do acquisitions. So we've been making broad use of that. We have, as I think you probably know, a wide number of AI related contracts from which we can choose to acquire specific solutions. But I want to back that up for a second. So AI is here and we're going to use it, but I want to back it up for a second. My theme of the day is that AI is a tool, and it's like any other tool. It's only as good a tool as the person wielding it, which explains why I don't have a tool. But the AI, just like any other tool, should not become an end to itself. So there are a lot of things that AI can do. One of the things that my Office of Technology Policy Director told me today is that he pits chatbots against each other so they can debate and learn and come up with new ideas and solutions. I thought that was pretty neat. There are people who are much smarter than I am who have a pretty good idea on how to use this technology. But by the same token, while we can do things like using AI to make sure that the thought piece, making sure that the RFI, making sure that the RFQ we wrote is written tightly, AI should not replace the RFI, RFQ, or other writing capabilities we have for a number of reasons. Our work is complex. We want to make sure that if we send out an RFI that says, please give us your comments on the current state of technology bananas, we don't end up having AI give us an RFI that says, we'd like Tasmanian banana input, because that's not what we are after. And yet, if you don't check the tool, you run the risk of having those types of situations. Similarly, I don't want people to get lazy and lose their professional edge. So I've told my workforce, I've told my directors that while AI can be used as a tool to help polish our work and make sure we're conveying things concisely, it does not replace the task of drafting the original version of whatever it is we're writing. So AI's got some great uses to it. I know Dave Shive, our CIO, is really excited and really driving the train on it. Ed Forrest, our administrator, has already started using some of our AI technologies at his level. So it's definitely part of our operational plan, but it's not going to become an end to itself.
Great. I want to take a quick pivot here. You talked about consolidation. We've seen a lot around this OneGov strategy, and we get announcements every time companies out there making a big deal with GSA. Can you talk about some of the challenges on OneGov that you've seen, maybe that we're not seeing, and what do you think the impact is going to be on industry, especially maybe systems integrators and their role, and what would you say to those SIs about OneGov?
So there are a couple of things I say about OneGov. It's a good question, by the way. There's a lot that's been said on it. I will try not to re-go over that ground again, although some of that's inevitable. I think one of the big challenges that, not necessarily from an industry side, but from a government side, we have to remember that some of the OneGov discounts were not permanent. Some of them sunset when the fiscal year ended. We also have to understand in government that some of the deepest discounts are on what I would call entry-level technologies that can be used on their own, but are often used in tandem or combination with other solutions from that same company that's offering a great price over here. So we need to be mindful in government of buying smart. So while we're getting a great deal on this part of OneGov, we want to make sure we're getting good deals with the rest of the package that we're buying, whatever that is. For industry, it's worth noting two things. First of all, you don't have to wait for the OneGov office to get around to you in order to offer deeper discounts. Contractors can put together their own OneGov-esque plans if they so choose. While there may not be an immediate GSA press release on that, it's something that companies do have the ownership of that they can do those types of things if you want. And we've seen that historically over time in government acquisition anyway, way before OneGov. People who don't get the contract they thought they were going to get awarded, the next day they go out and come out with a parallel program that offers all those benefits and maybe something else. So this is the same type of approach. The other thing I want to talk about OneGov is there's a line around the block of companies that want to get in and talk to our OneGov office. That should tell industry a couple of things. One, it should tell industry, hey, there's a lot of interest in doing business with the government. And second, that people actually want to get that OneGov imprimatur on their offerings. But it should also say, that's sending a message to our acquisition workforce internally. And that message is deeper discounts are there to be had. So I think we know at the strategic level that whether or not discounts are always available, depending on the line being offered or the circumstances, people at the tactical level don't always have the luxury of making that distinction. So if they're seeing companies lined up around the block to get into the OneGov tent, then they're going to, not incorrectly, assume that they should be able to negotiate for deeper discounts, at least in some circumstances. If you're a contractor that runs into that, and you're in a situation where simply there's not a business case to be made for offering those types of steep discounts, you want to make sure that you understand that you're going to have to really say, this is not like OneGov because, and I can offer you this here, but I can't offer you that there. You need to anticipate what that mindset's going to be and get out in front of it as best you can. So I think that's a few things. I think that the real measure of OneGov will be how much people use it. It's one thing for us to be able to negotiate deeper discounts and new deals with people, and we are. But then the key is going to be how widely accepted and used those OneGov agreements are by our customer agencies. That's the type of thing that we'll only figure out over time. Be interesting to look at some of the Q4 acquisition numbers in that context. I don't know that we've done that, but it would be interesting also to track over the FY26 fiscal year how that adoption plays out.
Great. So, and in regards to industry and what we out here should be preparing for, OneGov's obviously one tool in the toolbox. Are there other things? We saw the executive order on the defense contractors recently. Is there anything else to expect that we should be mentally or organizationally preparing for to better serve government? Or
Yeah,
have we seen most of?
there are a lot of things swirling behind the scenes, but none of them are really ready for prime time. You referenced my earlier comment, though, that 26 is going to be a year where change continues. Not even I have a perfect crystal ball into what those specific changes are going to be. Some of them are going to come from outside of my agency. Some of them are going to come from the courts or Congress want to do. So I think we just have to anticipate the change. One of the things that I've found when I was in the private sector is that reading things can be a good way to keep on what's going on, and participating in groups like this are a good way to stay ahead of the curve. I tell people that, if you really want to be as exciting as Larry Allen, and let's face it, who wouldn't be? You should be reading some of the things that I read, like Federal News Network, Fed Scoop, GovExec, things of that nature. Guaranteed huge hit on your Friday night cocktail party. But nevertheless, staying informed are ways, because rarely do these things to changes just drop in from out of the ether. There's usually some clue of what's going to develop beforehand.
All right. Well, I've monopolized a good part of this. I had one quick kind of almost a yes or no question before I hand it over to my friend Ben here. And it is with the new administrator starting last week, 2 weeks ago. Is there a possibility of seeing another round of these contract reviews that we saw a lot of in 2026, or is he kind of bless what's already there? What should we expect?
That's a good question, and I'll give you the honest answer. I don't know yet. I know that
It was yes or no, Larry. I'm sorry.
I will say, but I will say the reason I don't know yet is because it's something we're actively reviewing. Yep. It's not like we set it and forget it. It's not like it's not on anybody's burner. It's definitely on burner, definitely on a burner, and definitely recommendations will be made internally on what we want to do, and we'll have to see what people want to do with those recommendations. So it's not like it's going to be static. It's an active area, but it's just too early to say how it's going to play out.
Thank you. Ben?
Sure.
Or Gisa?
Thanks, Dominic. Thanks, Larry. So turning a bit, the Office of Central Acquisition is playing a pretty pivotal role in buying for the rest of government. Can you talk a little bit about where that stands as of today, and where do you see that going maybe over the next 12 months?
Sure. So there are two parts to this in terms of acquisition consolidation and the role of OCAS. The one that is more immediately happening is the consolidation of acquisition vehicles. We're seeing GSA. We're doing an internal review of that. We've had active discussions with NITAC, and they're on the precipice of making decisions and announcements on what they want to do. So I'll let them make those. That's not my story to tell. And then, of course, everybody knows that we are in active discussions with NASA SOUP. We are working with NASA and with the Office of Management and Budget to execute the executive order and bringing SOUP over into our fold. And that's the first part. The second part of what OCAS does is that it's what I call assisted acquisition light. smaller dollar volume projects, less complexity than some of the traditional AAS work that GSA is well known for. That's going to be done on an opt-in basis by customer agencies. They're not going to be required to come to us. We are in active discussions, obviously, with every single agency. We have transitioned a handful of them over. I think those are probably well known. We are in active discussions with others to bring more of the assisted work into our agency. I want to make sure, as I'm sure my FAST colleagues do, that when we do that, we're doing things that we actually can deliver on, that we're not over-promising to anybody. So it's going to be a process that unwinds. OMB is also closely working with us on that part of acquisition consolidation. They want to make sure it's not just we want to make sure we have a value statement and that we can handle what we're doing. OMB is actively working with us on that front. And they are, anybody who's worked with OMB knows that they are not shy about offering input and suggestions. And I know that our FAST OCAS team meets with them, I think, every other week, formally. And then, of course, informally, they have discussions more frequently than that. So that will be the second, that's progressing, but it's progressing on a separate highway than the contract consolidation portion of it. And I think you'll see more in the short term on that, on the contract consolidation, and more longer term on the acquisition management.
All right. Thank you for that. There's been some discussion about GSA's forecast of opportunities that I'm sure most people on this call are pretty interested in, and that it may be expanded for use by all federal agencies. Any updates on contracting forecast tools that GSA may be working on or looking to standardize across the federal agencies?
Well, that's a really good question. It's not something that I'm involved with on a day-to-day basis, but I suspect if you ask Laura Stanton or Stephanie Shudd, who's the FAST chief of staff, they'll probably have a more definitive answer for you. I will say, however, that from a notional standpoint, I am somebody who is foursquare in favor of making our opportunities more transparent, making sure that we have procurement forecasts for every agency, making sure that those are updated. We're supposed to do those. We ought to do them. And we need to also make sure that they're relatively easy to navigate. It's absolutely fascinating to me. It was probably close to 2 years ago now when I was still a humble consultant. Nobody cared what I had to say. When I reached out on behalf of a client of mine to a certain agency asking where their small business procurement forecast was, and they didn't have one. I think they have one now. Anyone hazard a guess? You want to hazard a guess as to what agency didn't have a small business forecast? SBA.
There's so many
SBA
options.
did not have a small business acquisition forecast. Like, guys, come on. This seems to be kind of basic to you, right? So, but I would hope that we will be able to implement that. There are a lot of tentacles to that, tentacles that aren't immediately obvious to industry. At least they weren't immediately obvious to me when I was in industry. And part of that is, one of those is making sure we have the funding and technological capability to set those systems up and manage them properly. That is absolutely not a given, given competing priorities and budget constraints.
All right. Thank you for that. And then finally, sort of circling back around to what maybe you mentioned at the top with the new administrator, can you talk about how GSA is leveraging data analytics to improve acquisition outcomes?
So it's not just acquisition outcomes, it's everything that the agency does. Each staff and service office inside GSA has been directed to come up with measurement standards for all the things that we do. As I mentioned, that's interesting for a policy shop, but we have to do it just like everyone else. That's manifesting itself initially in terms of internal meetings with people like our CFO, who are helping the different offices develop those metrics. Ed Forst expects each staff and service office inside GSA to have metrics. Therefore, we will have metrics, and they will be used to measure our acquisition outcomes. I think a top priority is reducing our PALT numbers that tended to soar for a variety of reasons in FY25. But it's going to run deeper than acquisition. And I will tell you, everybody's got the message. All you have to do is be in 2 meetings with Ed to hear, you start off by talking about what it is you want to talk about. And he says, let me stop you right there. And then the questions come. And they're the questions that you would expect would come from someone with the Goldman Sachs and Cushman and Wakefield executive experience that he brings to the agency.
So how many buildings have you sold today, kind of thing?
Something like that, yes. Thankfully, I am not in PBS, but yes.
All right, back over to you, Gisa.
We have a bunch of questions in chat, and we have one more question left that we want to ask. And maybe I'll ask this and then turn it over to Nicole to run through the questions in the chat. Looking ahead, what emerging trends in government acquisitions should we be paying attention to?
That's a good question. I think as a general rule, you have to follow the money. One of the things I will say is it looks like most of the agencies are going to have appropriations for the last few months of the year, which is great. Our colleagues in Congress seem to be moving apace on that. So it'll be, at least for most agencies, will be a year of not having to manage entirely through a continuing resolution. So if there have been some priorities that your customer agency has wanted to get to, but they haven't had the appropriated funding to do it, that may be about to change. So that's good news. And it's good news for people in government too, because it's not like we were sitting around saying, we really want this for Christmas. We have to have this system in order to meet our mission. So, that's, I think that's a good news story. Certainly from a technology standpoint, how we make smart use of AI, not just unbridled use. That's one thing that's more of a change of degree than a change in direction. If we were having this discussion 9 months ago, it was going to be, AI no holds barred. Now it's still AI, but we want to make sure that we're using it in a sensible and sustainable manner to improve things that need to be improved, and not just to say, hey, guess what we did. But I think we'll see what happens with agency missions. And if you track your customer agency missions, you'll know what that is. I think it's also some of the things that come out of this administration are worth watching. Some of the things that come out of the White House, whether those have to do with executive compensation. That Trump 1 and the Biden administration were both very strong on Buy American. That's not going to change. So it's going to be things like that you want to anticipate. There's no huge trend that I see other than making sure that you're paying attention to what's coming out in the trade press, the trade media. I think Jason Miller is with us along with Meritalk. Read them. They know what they're doing.
Jason, you have your action from this meeting. Okay, with that, thank you so much, Larry. Let me turn it over to Nicole to see. We have a bunch of questions in the chat to see if she can run through some of those in the next few minutes that we have left.
Great, thanks, Gisa. All right, Larry, Here's a question we have for you, and it is, what is the most interesting myth you've seen or heard about the revolutionary FAR overhaul?
I think the most interesting myth is that we just nibbled at the edges and didn't really get to the core of changing things. We're not done yet. We'll see more things come out in the rulemaking process, but we got rid of something like over 1,100, this conservative estimate, over 1,100 shells or musts. We combined at least two FAR chapters into one. We plan on combining more. We got rid of a whole bunch of unnecessary clauses, things that weren't rooted in statute, and moved them over to non-regulatory guides. So we really did try to make the most of the opportunity. Different agencies have different comfort levels in terms of what they want to adopt, but we did a much more than just nibble at the edges. And as I said, we're not done with the pie yet.
Great. That is very helpful. Let's see. Got a couple more minutes. I'm going through it now. We have a question from C. Jackson. Can we define a range for smaller acquisitions? Let's see.
I think that was related to OCAS. When you were talking about OCAS, I think that question popped up.
Yes.
Right. So, we're working with our customer agencies on how to scope their needs and scope their requirements. I'd be surprised if there weren't more manageable levels of procurement. We're gonna because of budgetary issues. GSA is not unlike anybody else in the government. We have to make wise use of the dollars we have, and no one agency is going to have a significantly greater amount of money than they've had previously. So that if you follow that logic out, that would lead to more manageable acquisitions. On the other hand, we do have a smaller acquisition workforce, and we're going to have to get the most bang out of our procurement acquisition bucks with the workforce that we have. So sometimes that may mean, I don't know if it will, but it may mean having larger acquisitions simply because it's easier to do 5 larger ones than 15 smaller ones. But again, that's all going to depend on the budgetary pressure and the scope of what it is the customer agency is hoping to achieve.
Great. Gisa, do we want to go through one more? Are we ready to close?
Yeah, if it's a short one, we can. We've got 1 minute.
Let's
Let's
see.
use every minute we have with Larry.
All right, we come back up. Someone says, you mentioned updating the GSAR sooner than the RFO. Are you working on adding justification requirements under RFO 8.4, which references GSAR 538.71? There are currently no requirements for justifications for sole sources.
Yes, that I can't get into all. Thank you for doing that. I hadn't committed 5.3
all the numbers.
Memory, but I know generally, yes, I certainly know 8.4 and all that. But yes, we are working a lot on justifications. We are looking, you've seen some of this in our 8A work. You will see it in other areas as well, where the preference is going to be for competition, and where justifications are, where sole source is indicated, making sure that we have clear guidance on the justification for those circumstances.
Great.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Larry, for your time. We truly appreciate you, spending some time with us and running through the questions. So on behalf of the Acquisition COI and the GSA FIE team, and I see Deidre Murray, who leads the FIE on the call, thank you very much. And hopefully we'll see you tomorrow at the CGP event.
Very good. Thank you all very much.
We'll do this
Have a
all
great
over
afternoon.
again.
Thank you, Larry.
Thank you, Larry.
Bye-bye.